Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the attack on America, September 11th, 2001. Of course, we have with us to talk about the psychological implications, in a real sense, of the attack on America, September 11th, 2001, Dr. CPoe. Dr. Poe is a psychiatrist in Nashville, Tennessee. And of course, Dr. Poe, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you. Very good to be here.
And to say, Dr. Poe, how delighted we are to have you here, because we've had you on a number of occasions before, and on every occasion you've given us some exceptional information from a psychological point of view. And I think that each time it sort of opens our mind in reference to how we see things and the perspective which we have. And that's what we'd like to do today, because I think it has been admitted that the attack on America, September 11th, is a watershed in the history of this country, that things will never be the same again one way or the other. And we want to talk about the impact that is having upon not only the physical impact, but the psychological and the mental implications of this. And so let's do that today. But before we do so, let's start off by having you to give us a little information about yourself, your background, your education, and some of those things that were important that eventually led you to the situation that you're in now.
Well, first of all, I'm from Eustis, Florida, in Central Florida, near Orlando, Florida. Grew up in Sarasota, Florida. Came to Nashville in 1956 to Tennessee State University. Went on to Meharry Medical College and spent a year in the military in Korea, and did a residence in psychiatry in Berkeley, California, and finished in 1970. And have been attempting to practice psychiatry since that time. I'm specifically now a Christian psychiatrist. I'm also a minister of the gospel.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Dr. Poe, let's, in talking about the attack on America, let's give you an opportunity to make some statements in reference to that will sort of establish a perimeter for the kind of information that you want to give us over the next 30 minutes, because I know you've got a lot of excellent information, because I know from the previous shows that you had excellent information. So let's do it from there. Let's give you an opportunity to speak to, number one, the attack on America.
Well, as you said, Dr. Haney, that was very much a watershed event. As you said, it's going to have an impact, has had, is having on the functioning of our nation for some time to come. For one, what it did was to intensify fears of injury and death. We saw buildings collapsing. We saw the Pentagon on fire. We were told that the White House was being evacuated. Never in the history of this country has we seen that kind of thing happen, except maybe going back to Pearl Harbor. And so I think that our sense of security, our belief that we could be protected by our military, okay, was shattered. And I think that the result was that it intensified fears of injury and death all over the country. Now, also, let me just say this. Not everybody was impacted to the same degree by these particular events. My own belief is that if I was living a me-first lifestyle prior to September 11th, if I was out there doing my own thing, taking advantage of people, then I believe that my grief response would be, by and large, greater than if I was trying to live a God-centered life. Persons who have an active faith in God and who are trying to live a life pleasing to God generally are more buffered against the grief that's related to the loss of a loved one or grief that's related to the loss of life as this involved.
And so it depends on who the individual is, but everybody's going to be impacted, but some will be more so than others.
That's correct.
Is that essentially what we're saying? You know, this whole thing, I think, has a sort of a mind kind of thing that's associated with it, and people have talked about the psychological impact that it will have by showing the collapse of the Twin Towers over and over. Speak to that and what it might do to children and that kind of information.
Well, there's what's called the fight-flight response, and we have found that certain changes go on in the body when people perceive a threat or when they perceive danger, usually coming from the outside. And of course, when you see two tall buildings in New York City collapsing and on fire, then I believe that the psychological and the physiological response is one of fear. Okay, the person will perceive threat, and so that fear response, the more intense it is, the more prolonged it is, the more it's going to manifest in behavior, the more it's going to manifest in sleep disturbances, appetite disturbances, and so on. I think children who witness that or who were told about it most likely initially began to manifest some sleep problems or an increase in their sense of insecurity. And so those children probably became more withdrawn, in some cases more aggressive in others, or more clinging to parents or parent substitutes in other cases.
And what should parents do to sort of create a better sense of understanding or stability within for the child? I mean, what should our response be?